man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Yo, yo. First thing I want to say. First thing I want to say is thank you everybody who's been on the journey with me for streaming and making my transition to YouTube for the podcast and everything. Greatly appreciate you guys. Let me just make sure the mic can hear me a bit properly. There we go. There we go. Um, so as suggested, this is my personal takes on the NBA. I've been wanting to have a it's kind of discussion slash podcast idea with NBA takes. Biggest thing for me is I love basketball. Right, I love basketball. Been watching basketball for majority of my life. I'm 26, so I was able to see the last of Jordan's career. I was able to see the start of LeBron's. I was able to remember the this not the start of Kobe's, but when Kobe started popping off. Um, what else? What else? What else? I remember all the retirements that happened. I remember AI. I remember playing 2K1, 2K2 on the PS2. Like it was kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie. We used to go to my neighbor's house, and we used to try to hang out. We just play NBA all day. And back then, you're looking at the graphics back then, and you're going like, oh, like this is whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like this is the graphics are just so good. And next thing you know, you look at hindsight and go, damn, them shits was trash, right? Um, so I'm just gonna give a little introduction to my basketball life. Watching basketball since I was 5. Right, I've been watching like religiously been watching basketball since I was 5. Um, One of the biggest things I did growing up was play basketball as much as I can. Uh, Even to the point where even in middle school, we would help start this program in middle school. Me and my boys and a teacher, where kids who weren't really going to school or anything like that can show up and play ball in the morning, right? So we would wake up 5:30 or whatever. We would go straight to the gym at like 6 o'clock. We would get to school at 6 a.m. Right, and then play ball for the rest of the hour, and then go to classes and everything like that. So you always had to make sure you had like a shirt or anything like that. Um, Played in my first official like actual league when I was 12. Actually, no, my bad. It was when I was 11. I joined my middle school basketball team, and honestly, I was not getting any minutes. Like, kind of hated it because of the fact that like everybody else was always a better dribbler, like basketball, like the dribbler than me. They have better handles than me. Um, but when I was going, I was going. If I couldn't miss a shot, you wasn't stopping me. If you were not out rebounding me, you was not stopping me at the three. Like it was just, and my hook shot was crazy, right? Um, so my first was when I was 11. The next was when I was 12. Was my last year, the junior Pee Wee League. And we ended up. This it's actually the only participation trophy I got. I broke my like. I'm sorry. I know how this generation is now, where it's like participation trophies, but me, I never like participation trophies. Right. The worst part about it was we were supposed to win. Right. Like we were the favorites to win. We had an undefeated record. Everything. Three of our players called in sick for the playoffs. So we had to like because it's parents and stuff watching, we had to actually play 3v7. Right, it was only three of us. Right, and my main guy, he couldn't pay for his membership in the league, so they had to drop him from my team, and I'm sitting there like, wow. And then they gave us a trophy, like a little participation trophy with the basketball like this, and I broke it. I broke the hands off, right? Because it was just a reminder that damn, we were supposed to win, and we got cheated out of it. But You know, that's just like reliability. Um, couldn't do organized sports actually for a while because there was a misunderstanding between the doctors and my grandfather. Yo, what's good, Frank? Where he thought I had tuberculosis, so he thought if I go out there and do a sport, I'm gonna die, right? So he basically forbade me from doing sports, and it wasn't until I was 16, right? So like a 4 year gap that I was able to do sports, but I had to sneak it, right? Like I would go after school to do my sports, and I would have to sneak it, and I ended up joining the track team to do it. Ended up joining the football team. Like I was going ham, and then I was gonna join the. I'll try it out for the basketball team, and the coach took a liking to me because he said I had a lot of ambition, a lot of drive, and that he said he could make me into a great player. But at the same time, my track team, because it's in the winter, so they intertwine. My track team didn't have a single thrower on the roster during the winter season. So, because I was already familiar with track and I was already captain at track, I, I was like, I felt obligated to go into track. Right. Uh, Fast forward into college, I played basketball every night at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Face off against most of the people in the college. Face off against the basketball team sometimes. They would call us the 10 p.m.ers because me and my boys always came in at 10 p.m. and whooped their ass. Um, and the thing about me is somebody asked me that why don't I play college basketball? And I told him, I said, college basketball is different. Hear me out. I play like I'm a forward, right? I play like I'm a power forward that can shoot, right? That's my style of play. The average height for a power forward in college, especially because we were D2, it's probably like 6'7", 6'8", right? I'm 6 foot flat. I'm not. I'm not. They gonna try to dunk on me and shit like that. I'm not gonna do it. Right. You could put me as a guard, but again, I don't have the handles of a guard. Right. I have ball security, but I don't have the handles of a guard. If anything, you can compare me to like a Jerry West, where it's like I can bring the ball up the court or whatever. I can pass you the ball at a good. I was a great passer, by the way. I can pass you the ball and whatever. But when it came to like spin move, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. The last time I played ball organized wise was when I went down to the islands for my mom's 50th. And we had the villages fighting each other. And by villages, I mean just like parts of the town. And we got third, right? My village is named Cudgel-Head, right? And we got third place because we kept fouling too much. And on top of that, let me just give you guys a perspective. Give you guys a perspective. I legit could not miss my threes. I could not miss, bro. Whenever I shot through, wow, tastes good, right? The playoff game I'm in, and my coach doesn't have me shoot anything until the fourth quarter. Right? They don't pass me the ball. I'm open and everything. Right? I'm sitting here like, what the fuck? And then finally, when they start passing us the ball, we start missing. And it's like, damn, how they start missing? Because we're cold the whole entire time. You can't have us not shoot for 3 quarters and then expect us to, come in hot. You know what I'm saying? So you can't do that. So that was my last thing with basketball, organized wise. Favorite player of all time, Michael Jordan. Right. Enough said. Second favorite is Dwayne Wade, which is ironic because he's another shooting guard. Third favorite is, this is gonna surprise people, is Manu Ginobili, right? Like most people don't think about Manu Ginobili like that. Manu Ginobili was a was a star player, in my opinion, a superstar player who decided to ride the bench, right? For his team though, he did it for his team because him, Tony Parker, and Duncan, even though they were all three, like the big three in San Antonio, Ginobili took a backseat because he would need the ball to control the second unit, right? Tony Parker and him will eventually share the floor sometimes, but Ginobili was in charge of the second unit. Duncan and Parker were in charge of the first, right? because you always need a second unit when you're playing basketball. Because when the first unit sits down, you want to make sure either you extend the lead or extend the lead, keep the lead, or be able to come back to a lead, right? A lot of people focus so much on these starters they don't worry about their bench, which is how the 2015 Warriors were dominating people because their bench was nice, right? A lot of people don't realize that. Um, so today I'm going to be talking about super teams, right? And a lot of people have this notion that super teams are just like stat teams, right? Like oh they're just good or they won a championship so they're a super team. No, no. Let me break it down for you guys, right? The term super team, right, was never used to describe a dominating team. That was never the case. The term super team was when you had top 10 to top 15 players, right? Join up in their prime to then put an unfair advantage into the league, right? They didn't have to give up anything to do it, right? When there's a trade happening, you have to give up things, right? For example, if you look at the Boston Celtics, 2008, right? When this for some people, right? Not a majority, trust me, but for some people, this is where they thought the super team era started, right? It was when Boston had Ray Allen, KG, and Paul Pierce. None of those guys, you could probably argue KG, but none of those guys were top 15 players at the time, right? None of those guys were winning with their teams at the time, right? The issue was, and I say this all the time, is that Boston was old heads who knew how to play together, right? They weren't in their primes, but they were old heads that knew how to play together. Just to put it in perspective, Boston players, this the averages, right? The big three averaged 20, 19, and 18. I think 17 actually at one point. KG normally had the most with 20. But it wasn't 21, it wasn't 23, it wasn't 25. It was literally 20. Like, offer 20. People are like, oh yeah, they don't know. They started the super team, so LeBron made a super team and blah blah blah. No. All right, Celtics did what's been happening in history, in which you give up a lot of things to get a player, right? That's why I don't consider the Lakers is a Mickey Mouse ring. I don't consider that a super team. It's a 1-2 punch with a lot of good role players, right? You didn't have motherfuckers averaging above 20 or 30 other than AD and Braun. That's not a super team. You know what I'm saying? That's not a super team. Braun actually won it with a team. Right? That was a team. That's not a super team. Lakers were not a super team. Warriors before KD, not a super team. Right? Homegrown teams, not a super team. You know why? Because they had to develop over time. Right? They had to develop and get better over time. So that means every time they lost, had a losing season, that was them. Right? Anytime they started winning, that was also them. Right? They didn't jump in when it became a winning season. No, it was always lose season, winning season, winning season. Right? The thing about the Warriors though is that they had a good bench. Right? If you really look at it, they had a good bench that was able to spread the floor. They started playing small ball, right? And I think Andrew Bogut, I believe was their center, he controlled the middle, right? Steph out here revolutionizing the three, and then the issue is once you try to like get away from Steph, Clay was right there saying, "I bet spot up shot, bam, I'm good," right? That's not a super team. The audacity that people had was that people were trying to call Draymond a superstar. Mr. Triple Single himself. They tried to call him a superstar. And this is not a knock against Draymond. I think Draymond is a good player, right? I just know that Draymond is benefiting a lot from the system he is in. Now don't get me wrong. He's the facilitator of that system. Right? He's the facilitator. But as we have seen, when he's by himself and he has to facilitate to other players, right? He's more of the motivational speaker at that point, right? Because I think last year, before Steph came back, the Warriors had the worst record in the season, if I'm not mistaken. They were just downright horrible, right? Like, and that shows you a lot. That exposed, in my opinion, that exposed Draymond that he's a system player, right? He can't. He gave you. It's like what Westbrook said about Patrick Bev. Patrick Bev isn't a great defender, right? But he yells and rah rah and everything like that. Now you thinking he's a great defender, right? He fouls you all the time, but you think he's a great defender. You know what I'm saying? Oh, what else is a super team that they considered? For some reason, Steven Jackson, and anybody who knows Steven Jackson knows he used to play for the Spurs. I believe the Indiana Pacers when he had the brawl. Um, he tried to call the Bucks a super team because of Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. Like, come on, fam. No, man. Like that's laughable in my opinion. The Cavaliers, right? When Braun joined Kyrie, right? When Braun went back to Cleveland and joined Kyrie, that wasn't a super team yet. Then you add a superstar at the time. You add a superstar in K Love, right? All they had to do was trade a draft pick. You add a superstar in K Love. Yeah, my dad's a fool. I'm gonna talk about it. You have a superstar in K Love, in which at the time when he joined Cleveland, that was a super team, right? You had K Love, in my opinion, at the time. I think he was a top 10 power forward, top 5, right, in the West, mind you. West was better at the point. But not only that, no team could compete with the Cavs. Not a single team could compete with the healthy Cavs. And that acquisition of talent was literally all most of the time free agent signings. Don't get me wrong, the GM did their job, but you can't ignore the fact. Now people try to downplay the third option, which was K Love in that time, and then Chris Bosh in the Heat. Chris Bosh, I believe, was averaging about 22, 10, and 4 around that. Yeah, my numbers are kind of rusty. And then he became a third option on the Heat. So of course those initial numbers are gonna drop, especially with the fact that Chris Bosh can no longer compete like how he was competing, right? He can no longer go about it in a way where he can take the ball up, score if he wants to, or whatever. No, he was reduced to an in paint to outside shooting. That was his whole job in Miami, right? And as we saw, when he finally had a healthy season, he came back averaging 20 plus points. That's why they retired his jersey, right? Because it showed that this man was a monster, right? The Miami Heat, in my God honest opinion, was the one that started the era. They didn't start super teams. That goes way back. I can tell you the first super team that actually happened. But when it comes to Miami, you took a prime D Wade, who at the time was only second to Kobe in shooting guards. Right, so you had a top 2 shooting guard, you had a top 2 small forward, right, which was LeBron, and you had a top 5 power forward in Chris Bosh, right, all of which free agency. You know what I'm saying? And that team was made to, and apparently that's what they say. That team was made to beat the Celtics, right? How often did LeBron see the Celtics? Every year, right? Almost every year. How often did the Celtics see the Raptors? Barely, right? Kind of barely. How often did the Celtics see the Heat? Kind of barely, right? So that means that it wasn't them going, let's beat the Celtics all together. It was them going, can you help me out to beat the Celtics, right? And again, is this the difference between, like, and then a lot of people try to say the Celtics were in their prime. Go to a park right now and try to find them old heads, right? Like 50, 60 years old, 50, around 50 to 60. And play them in basketball, right? Let them get their 5, you get your 5. You guys may be energetic. You guys may be better, right? But if they know fundamental basketball, they'll still beat you, right? And you know who's a pure example of that? The Spurs. If you look every year at the Spurs are pure fundamental basketball, right? Our current situation is actually the Olympics right now. The U.S. is literally losing to the teams that play fundamental basketball. Right? It's not about who can dunk the highest. It's not about who can shoot the most. It's all about efficiency. Right? How many times did you pass the ball before you guys decided to shoot a three? Right? Like all that stuff. But a lot of people, a lot of this the issue I have with a lot of people is that they'll look at that and go, no, no, we just started missing. No, right? That's how it is. They when you know the fundamentals of everything, things start to get a lot easier with a little less effort because of the fact that you're just focused on the simplicity, right? Tim Duncan would give you 19, 11, and 6 a night doing the minimum, right? He had this wing. He had this wing uh, bank shot where I'll turn around, bam, right? 2 points. Kyrie coming up the court is gonna dribble 72 times, spin move, right? Over my legs, over my head, layup. That's also still 2 points though, right? You know what I'm saying? Now people will look at that and go, Kyrie's better at basketball, and it's like how if both people got 2 points, but one person got 2 points and less effort, right? I always say the person who has to use less effort to get the same amount of production is the one who is better. That's how it's more efficient. If you can make a Nike shoe right now for $100, and I could make the same Nike shoe for $50, same material, everything like that. Who has the better shoe? Me, right? I'm the person that's able to sell it cheaper, but it's the same material, right? A lot of people don't realize that. Um, but if you guys want to go into like God honest opinion, who was probably one of the first super teams, I would have to say it might be the Lakers. It might be the Lakers, but I don't think so. Right? I feel like if somebody gets drafted into a team, that's not a super team. Not at all, right? So somebody like Magic, Bird, Kobe, the Bulls, that's not a super team, right? They just won often because again, they love to play fundamental basketball. Jordan didn't start winning until, and people say it was until Scotty got there. No, 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 no. It was until Phil got there. Because Scotty in his first season was averaging what, 9, if any, points, right? Now Scotty was a bench player his first season, right? But when Phil made the triangle offense, it made sure everybody could touch the ball, right? And if everybody could touch the ball, that means since everybody gets more touches, now we got to focus on who the hell might score. Now you may know Michael Jordan's the main scorer, but before that triangle offense, you knew Michael Jordan was the only scorer. See, that's the difference. There's a main and there's an only, right? Main just means when push comes to shove, that's the guy, right? But if it's only, it's no matter what happens, that's the guy. You get what I'm saying? So when people try to call the Chicago Bulls a super team because they had Scotty and Rodman, the other thing to remember is Rodman, right, was basically averaging 5 points, 20 rebounds, and like 7, 8 assists, right? Like that's how crazy Rodman was on the rebound board. That's not a superstar, right? Rodman didn't even get a single All Star vote, not vote, but he didn't get an All Star role the entire time he was with the Bulls, right? So would you say he's All Star level? Not really. You know why? Because of the fact that Rodman was basically non-existent for the offense, right? He was part of the triangle offense, so he's able to pass the ball effectively. But when it comes to his actual stat line, when it comes to his presence on the court, the only thing you knew was Rodman's going to get the rebound, right? One thing everybody emphasizes today is that when you are playing basketball, it's 50-50, right? 50% offense, 50% defense. Rodman was basically playing half offense, so he was about 25% offense, which means he could be 75% defense. Right? We see it today. We see people like James Harden. I think probably a few years ago, James Harden was shooting up a storm, but come defense, he's not playing a single bit of it. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not. And a lot for a lot of people started to have issue with. They're like, oh, James Harden can't win if you don't play defense. That's always been a thing. This is why they had to invent the term two-way player, because there shouldn't be, in my God honest opinion, a person being called a two-way player, because basketball is a two-way sport anyway. But we came up with the term two-way player simply because of the fact that people stopped playing defense. So now we have to reward people for doing their job. You know, um, but there's something that I have to say about the super team is super team doesn't always mean you'll win, right? Because of the fact that injuries may happen, because of the fact that for all you know, the player that you signed may not be effective as much as we saw, for example, with OKC when you got Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony was averaging single digit points, right? People were arguing he's the best scorer of all time, but he was averaging single digit points. Paul George was shooting like I think like 30% or so. He would probably make about five shots a game while he was in OKC in the playoffs. Um, then you had Westbrook, who had to put the team on his back, but was incredibly inefficient when it came to his shots. But again, if it makes sense, your two scorers are nearly not making a thing. So wouldn't you decide you're the scorer now? Like I'm just saying. Um, but besides that, Giannis showed that you don't need a super team to win. Anything can happen, right? Lakers. I'm just going over the last 10 years. Lakers with LeBron. I mean, they were always the better team for every team they faced. So let's be real. Toronto Raptors. Warriors got injured. Doesn't matter. They beat a super team. Injuries happen, but that doesn't matter because again, they beat the super team. They made something happen in which Golden State decided, damn, we can't get our third ring. We can't become a dynasty. Because that's the thing. Dynasties normally happen when there's like three, right? When there's like three within a given thing. Like the first Lakers, Magic Lakers, dynasty. Celtics, dynasty. Bulls, dynasty. Houston Rockets, not a dynasty. Two. Next Lakers, dynasty. Spurs, dynasty. Right? They all have more than three. They all have three or more. Right? Cleveland Cavaliers when they face against the Golden State Warriors. People call this the biggest comeback of all time. No, it is, but context matters. The Cleveland Cavaliers the year prior with just LeBron and Dellavedova took the Warriors to 6. The Warriors were literally struggling though with them. Warriors come back and LeBron now has Kyrie and K-Love healthy in the finals. How in the blue hell do you go down 3-1? Right? And then people are like, but LeBron beat him 3-1 and KD lost to him 3-1. Okay, so y'all just gonna ignore everything. In order to be up 3-1, you needed to win games, right? In order to be down 3-1, you need to lose games, right? The OKC was one win away until I believe it was Robertson and the coach did not make adjustments. So you had Westbrook shooting, you had KD shooting, you had the team trying to shoot their way out of it. The Warriors then made their adjustments and went, okay, we could push KD to this side. We don't got to worry about this player, so we could double team West. We could double team KD, right? And what happens? KD and them start becoming inefficient, and the team can't do shit about it, right? But people, and then a lot of people like to blame Russ for the choke. They're like, oh, Kevin Durant left OKC because he said he decided he can't win with Russell Westbrook. Y'all, so everybody's gonna know when Russell Westbrook was there the first four games, right? When they were winning, right? Like y'all just gonna ignore Russ was doing his shit, but then when they start losing, everything was on Russ. That makes no damn sense. Uh, again, but before that, the Warriors were not a super team. They were a well-rounded team. That's the difference. So that was another non-super team that won. San Antonio beating the Miami Heat. Kawhi wasn't in his prime yet. He was more of a defensive bound person. Duncan was, I believe, 38 around the time. Like, what the fuck? Right? Manu and Parker were about 35, 34 or so. They beat the Miami Heat. Dwayne Wade wasn't his prime anymore because of his knees. But Bosh was still Bosh, too. Right? Again, no, that was not a super team winning. The Heat beating both the Spurs and the Thunder, super team. This is the prime Wade, prime Bosh. Dallas Mavericks beating Miami Heat, not a super team. Everybody knows Dallas Mavericks were a well-rounded team that adjusted their style of play. The Lakers, when they had Paul, Kobe, and Lamar, not a super team. Well-rounded. People could argue it, but no. It's just the fact that Kobe just needed another big man who was consistent, right? And Lamar Odom was Lamar Odom, you know what I'm saying? But that still wasn't a super team, right? And people weren't going, damn, Paul Gasol's too damn good. People weren't doing that, right? When you think about that 08-09 Lakers team, you're thinking about one person. You're literally thinking about Kobe. Right, you start to think about Paul a little bit, but there's certain things about super teams where it's like if it's mainly one player, you start thinking about that one player first, right, before anything happens, right. With Miami, if you mention LeBron in Miami, you automatically think D Wade Bosh. If you mention the Warriors when they swept the Cavs, you automatically think KD Steph. Right, you may not think Clay, Draymond, but you're gonna think KD stuff. When the Cavs beat the Warriors, you're thinking about Caleb, LeBron, Kyrie, and Caleb. Right, that's the thing that happens. San Antonio when they beat the Pistons, not a super team. Neither one was a super team. Again, homegrown. San Antonio when they beat the Cavs, again, not a super team. But if you go off the past 10 years, let me see here. Was 2021, so you got to go back to 2011. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could technically say we've had 6 of the last 10 finals championships go to a non-super team. So it's not that super teams are bad for the NBA, in my opinion. I just think they shift things to an unfair level, right? And the biggest part about it is that people don't like to compete anymore, and a lot of people get mad like, what do you mean them dudes don't like to compete? It's because the fact that you wasn't trying to beat them, right? You don't try to beat the top players anymore. You try to have them join your squad. You try to recruit them, right? If you were in the 90s and the 80s, this is why they say they prefer those better. If you were in the 90s and the 80s and you was out here saying to Magic, yo, Magic, come join Bird and me, right? You know, like you're probably Charles Barkley or Jordan and stuff like, come join us, right? Come join us. Like, Magic's gonna look at you like, I'm trying to beat you, right? You even hear the stories that they themselves tell where they would be in a gym and they're like, nah, you got to go at him. You got to go at him. Like, they would talk shit to each other like, yeah, I want to go at you. Right? I want to beat you. You know, so a lot of people gotta remember that the level of competition is relative to what's going on. Also, people are trying to say, like, the reason why you see so many super teams now is because of the fact that everybody's doing it, right? Everybody has super teams. The competition level is high. Let me give you a comparison, though. Let me give you a comparison real quick. When you play a video game, right, you have the first boss of the first level. Then you compare that first boss of the first level compared to, let's say, the last boss on the last level, Now, you're gonna look at the last boss and go, this person is incredibly harder than that first boss, right? But the thing is, when you progress in video games, you have items based off your level, right? So for the boss number one, even though it's like a level one boss, you have level one items. For the boss that's level 10, you have level 10 items, right? So relatively, both bosses are the same difficulty. That's why if you look at video games, it literally has a difficulty setting, not for the bosses themselves, but for the whole game, right? That's how it is. That's literally the NBA. That's literally competition. If you have the tools, right, then that person is a bigger competitor, right? Let's put in perspective. Right? People say Jordan could never beat this Warriors team. It's like, okay, now what are we gonna do? Are we going to put the Warriors back in the '90s, in which they know only '90s basketball, or do they have the tools that they learned from watching the '90s and the 2000s and the 2010s, and then put them in back there with all those tools, and then saying, yeah, like they could beat Jordan, right? Like, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Why would you? How is it fair that you take level 10 tools and go back to the level one boss? That doesn't make sense. It's not relative, right? So whenever people do this comparison, I always say, okay, if you're gonna put Jordan or Magic or whatever in this era, then you're gonna make sure that they have to learn the era first, right? You can't just have them go, okay, we're gonna take you up here, we're gonna put you here. You're not gonna learn a single thing about the era. So everybody else has the advantage of not of knowing, and then they have the advantage of not knowing. That doesn't make sense, right? That's why I say it's always relative. You got to put people in their own situations. Like that's just how it is. Um, a lot of people, of course, and Blake Griffin and everybody talk about this. The media criticizes these players for not having rings, right? Um, and in my god honest opinion, I think Shaq is one of the biggest issues with that. Hear me out. On inside the NBA, Shaq consistently, and I mean God, every day almost, right? Treats Charles Barkley like you're not Charles Barkley, bro. Right? Shaq would rag on Charles for not having a ring every day. But you know what's the worst part about it? Is that it's always when Charles is showing that he knows more about basketball than Shaq does, right? If Charles is like, listen, you can't talk to a certain player that way, right? You know, you talk like this. You know, you can't talk to players that way. And Shaq will shut your ass up, Chuck. So you don't know what you're talking about. You don't got no rings. And I'm sitting there like, but he's right, though, right? Like, why you on that Chuck? Every time. It's literally every time. And people see that. People see that. And Chuck goes, damn, like, I would love to have one, but I ran into Jordan, right? Shaq was dominating the league when he first came in. He got to the finals, same as Chuck, only one time before he changed teams, right? Actually, not. Let me not say before he changed teams, but before he joined another star, right? Like in Kobe, and the thing is, Chuck beat Jordan when he came back for those 17 games. Next thing you know, Chuck got swept by Jordan. That's a Chuck. Shaq got swept by Jordan. So Shaq can't talk as if he did something better. The Charles, in my god honest opinion, if in what was it 93, if Chuck had gone up against New York, right, Indiana, right, if he had gone up against those players, I think Chuck gets a ring. Actually, I think majority of Jordan's competition gets a ring if they're not facing the Bulls, right? And let me just show you what it is, right? You had uh, you had Magic's Lakers. They didn't have Wilt anymore. James Worthy got injured for one game and that was it. But had it been another team, they would have some people that could stop the main player on other teams. Phoenix Suns with Charles, again, face Jordan. Anybody else would have been fine. Portland Trail Blazers with Clyde Drexler, again, top team in the West, right? Face anybody else, they would have been fine. Uh, then you had the Seattle SuperSonics with Sean Kemp and Gary Payton. That was a defensive team that can score, right? Again, if it wasn't the Bulls, who's also a defensive team that can score, they win. The Utah Jazz twice. Nobody was stopping the Utah Jazz, bro. Nobody was stopping the Utah Jazz in the late '90s. But guess what happened? Jordan. Right? Like that's just it. That's just it. I call it the Jordan syndrome too, where people downplay the competition because they didn't win. Right? People will not call that Jazz team all time because what? They lost. People will not give respect to Charles Barkley's sons because they lost. Blazers, same thing. Seattle, same thing. Like even the Lakers, people got every Magic had HIV. We don't know how long Magic had AIDS and shit. HIV. We don't know how long it did. We know when it was diagnosed, but that motherfucker could have been having it since '85, and he was snapping in '85, right? So whoever found out it was '85, y'all gonna say the same thing? I don't think so, right? Um, but it comes to show you. Oh, and this is the other thing. In the mid '90s, um, this is around the time. So Charles teamed up with, I believe, Hakeem. Let me see if I got this correctly. Hold on 1 second, guys. Let me see. I believe Charles. There we go. All right. So Charles, right? This is why I feel like the first super team that was like free agent wise happened. It was Charles Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, and Scottie Pippen. You hear that team and you go, no fucking way. No fucking way. Actually, no. Pippen joined later. It was Drexler, Barkley, and Olajuwon, right? And you would think, damn, that team couldn't have lost, right? That team would win anything. Guess who beat them? The Jazz. Literally, Stockton and Malone beat their ass, right? Just for they beat them so bad, right? They beat them so bad that Drexler ended up retiring the next year. You know what I'm saying? And then when Drexler left, they got Scottie Pippen. See, like I said, like the what's it called? The notion of a super team isn't new, but let's not act like these were happening every single year, right? The super team era started 2010 to 2011 season. Right? If you think otherwise, I'm welcome to have any type of discussion about it. But it's definitely started with Braun in Miami. And the biggest thing about it is it's top players in their prime signing to the same team. Not traded to the same team, signing to the same team. There's a difference. Because managers, again, have to give up stuff in order to get those players. Free agent signing is just money. They had to give up money, but that was it. Right? There's no balance to it. That's why they say it shifts the balance when free agent signings of top stars happen. So you got to give kudos to people like Kobe, like Tim Duncan, like Jordan, like oh no, like Steph Curry, like Giannis. You know all these players that like Dirk, right? All these players stayed in the same spot, win or lose, right? They may have been frustrated. They may have even threatened to leave. They didn't do it though, right? So that's the thing. That's my opinion on super teams overall. Like the NBA always existed with them. It's not changing anytime soon, especially. But if the next two champions aren't super teams, the league is gonna shift because there's one thing about the NBA, it has recency bias. You see why the three ball is popular now, right? You see why three ball is popular now, but if you have somebody like Joel Embiid and Giannis just dominating the paint, You're not gonna see them shooting guards and stuff like that could shoot the lights out, be the first draft picks and things like that. No, you're gonna see dominant big men be the first pick. So watch out. I'm just saying. But yeah, that's it. That's it there. I just wanted to give my input on the super teams. So just as a reminder to everybody, so this is going to be every Thursday. I'm going to have certain things I can talk about. During the NBA season, I'm going to have a refresher, right? So we could just sum up what happened in the week of basketball, talk about what's going on, talk about people's struggles, everything like that. Again, shout out to the Bucks for winning. I did want to see CP3 get his first ring, but I think it's a lot better that Milwaukee did it because it's a small town ring with somebody who's there the whole time. And to be fair, CP3's been like, in my God honest opinion, like just oh my God. And then man, his on court etiquette is crazy. But and then you got Devin Booker who was getting compared to Kobe. I don't know why people did that. You know what I'm saying? Like but you see like how they played though. You see how the Suns played. They flopped out their minds, bro. It's ridiculous. So I'm actually happy that the Bucks won. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'll be here Thursday. I am looking for a co-host, somebody who knows the NBA as well, so they can get on with me and things like that. Again, I appreciate everybody for coming through, and you guys have a good rest of your evening. I'll see ya.